We've been getting really good reaction to our music here on the Pulse stage today. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. It's great. Welcome back to those of you who have been here before, and welcome to those of you who are here for the first time. Our next session is PropTech Trends Transforming the Built Environment. Now, this session bridges the gap between digital and physical. Our speakers will explore how data, automation and PropTech tools are reshaping business models and client expectations across the built environment. Chairing the discussion for us today, and we have a great panel assembled, but chairing the panel is Leigh Hughes, Managing Director of Felicitas Consulting. Felicitas Consulting was born out of a passion for bringing people, ideas and resources together to deliver exceptional results fueled by the spirit of can-do. So I'm sure these guys can do a fantastic talk for you today. Please put your hands together and welcome our panel.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you've had an interesting yesterday and day two is going well. So we're here to talk about PropTech and where that's transforming the built environment. And we're bringing together property, innovation and technology to solve problems, to make things more efficient. So we've drawn together a fantastic group of panelists who are going to shortly introduce themselves. But I think one of the ways we're going to introduce ourselves, so I got Tim on the end, Alice, Joe and Kai. They're going to introduce their organizations and companies, but innovation drives a lot of property technology. So these group of innovators must have saw a gap, come up with an idea and come up with a way of solving it. So my question to start things off for the audience is, what is the gap you saw? And as an innovator, how did you develop your company and give an explanation roughly about your company?
Straight into the questions, no messing, is it, Leigh? That's
yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So my name's Tim Barnett. I'm the Chief Exec of Credas Technologies. What the business does is we provide technology to our property-based customers to meet their compliance obligations. So we do it on fairly big scale. So 62% of all property transactions will use our software. And that processes about 5 million people a year. And our app is number 5 in the app charts. So you've got LinkedIn, Indeed, TeamZoom, and then Credas. And they've all got loads more money than me to develop. So we're quite proud of that. So the gap that we spotted in the market is that when you're buying or selling a property, on average, you have to do things like verify your identity 5.4 times. You have to do AML checks repeatedly over and over and over. And that used to involve people being dragged into a branch or an office or emailing or sending in photocopies, which was pretty poor in terms of data security and data minimization, and not a great experience for people. It was slow and quite expensive, really. So we removed that burden from the property transaction process and replaced it with our technology solution. And that seems to have sort of solved a problem for many people, and hence our fairly big market share.
Thanks, Tim. Alice?
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alice Shields, and I am the co-owner and director of eeziQS. eeziQS is a software that allows you to calculate your construction cost in minutes. So before we get to selling the property, every property needs sort of infrastructure work around there, and that's what our software does. So the gap that we saw in the market was engineers would produce a drawing on CAD using AutoCAD, Autodesk, and then they would then PDF them drawings, give it to a QS, and a QS then weeks later down the line would give back a cost. And in this time, designs would change, budgets would shift, and you'd be starting the process all over again. eeziQS allows you to upload CAD files, so DWG or CSV or Excel files. It matches it with a customizable rate library, and it gives you an accurate construction cost in minutes. So that's where we're at with our software, new to the market in September.
Thank you very much, Alice. We'll expand on that as time goes by. Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe Miles. I'm the founder of Atamate. So we're a building controls business. So what we've done is we have made essentially a control system, or for those in the industry, a BMS, building management system. We use a Bluetooth mesh network, so it's easy to retrofit into existing buildings. We collect data from sensors around the building and metering, and then we can control all of the mechanical systems in the building. In fact, we can control most of the systems full stop in the building. So, and typically as a result of that, we're finding that we can turn off the heating when there's no occupancy in the space. We can prevent you having we can put an interlock if you've got, window open and air conditioning on. You're finding that, there's a whole range of these problems that we see in most buildings. So typically we're reducing the energy in buildings by 30 to 40% in most of the retrofit projects we're going into. It's a fraction of the cost for new build of existing BMS. We're also quite getting a lot of traction in the off-site market. So this is where you build buildings in a factory essentially, and the big advantage for them is that that there's no requirement to do any cross wiring, so they can finish their units in off-site and then move it on site, and then it just goes together. So the gap in the market that we saw was. Basically, buildings need to be better. There's a real lack of decent control systems in buildings. They're very complex. They're overpriced. There's a disjointed design system between specification and the installers, and so it's just a series of problems, and that's what we've looked to rectify. Okay.
Thank you very much, Joe. And then finally, Kai.
Hi, my name is Kai Gwinnutt. I'm one of the co-founders of Moove. I feel like we've bookended the built environment here. Moove, moving home sucks. No one has a great experience of it for the reasons that Tim mentions, but also the communication between parties, the chasing, the paperwork, the lack of digitalization. The gap in the market that my co-founder Ross spotted as an estate agent for the last 15 years was that it's taken longer and people's outcomes are sort of getting less and less happy. What Moove does is it connects your estate agent, conveyancer, mortgage broker, and yourself together in one platform. We integrate with their CRMs and their CMSs so that we can push and pull notes, share milestones, and keep everyone up to date. Why that's great for the professionals is it reduces the amount of time they have to spend chasing, and why that's great for you as a home mover is you just get a much better experience, you know what's happening, and you know when things are happening.
Thanks, Kai. So, like I said, it was designed that when you want to sell a house, we got the people here for the lawyers. Then when you move, then we've got someone who can help you how much it's going to cost, and then we've got someone who's going to tell you how to run it sustainably to achieve net carbon. So we've got a cradle-to-grave panel here, and a key aspect that most people will think across this is security, data. Everybody's nervous, data security and so forth. So for each of your solutions, how does security or making sure that everything that you use in your tools is safe and up to date and so forth? Would you please give a bit more information on that key thing, because awareness and nervousness is linked to data security in today's world too.
Yeah, do you want me to kick off on that one? Yeah, look, data security is absolutely central to what we do. So we're dealing with millions and millions and millions of people, and we're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of pieces of personal information, bank statements, identity documents, copies of passports, etc., credit files. It's just the thing that keeps me up at night is the idea of a catastrophic data breach. It's the biggest worry for a tech business like us. So we have an entire team of people whose job it is to man the walls. And then we basically comply with all of the certifications that you'd expect. So ISO 27001, Cyber Essentials Plus. For our industry, we have a specific government certification called the DIATF, which then gets audited every year. We're part of a listed sort of a bigger group, so we get audited as part of being part of a public company as well. So you almost can't be too paranoid about it, actually. But there is a move in the industry and in technology in general, and particularly in and around personal data, where the principle of self-sovereign data is becoming more and more important. And that's where the individual, the citizen, will hold on to their data instead of companies like ours. So instead of me holding millions of records, there'll be millions of people hold their own one record. And then the technology will be able to connect that with various different parties who need access to it. And we're right at the birth of that now, but over the next 2 to 3 years, I think we'll see a big shift in that risk profile of companies like ours holding so much information on so many people will probably diminish, and instead that'll be almost pushed out and democratized back to individuals.
Fantastic and development. But then obviously your baton gets passed to to Kai and his company. So from your perspective, Kai, you have similar levels of security and data protection. So
Yes, what's great for us, we partner with Credas and they take care of all of that side of it. So we don't have to see, any of the ID documents, your passport, and all of that sort of thing. It's interesting in that when we integrate with the CRMs, we do still see like there's an ID field and you'll have WhatsApp _IMG_. It's great for us because we know like that's a candidate for somebody to buy an ID product because they're not doing it properly, but there's less and less of that. As Tim mentions, the self-sovereignty stuff is really interesting. So there's initiatives like the Open Property Data Association, and what they're doing around the ownership lies with individuals. It's a little bit like open banking, and you can then just share part of that data file with certain providers on a trust basis. It's new. It's I think a long way from full adoption, but the Ministry of Housing, we were on a call last week with them, and they are starting to engage with this and starting to think about it. That will provide massive sort of both security and also just the flow of data and the speed of data moving around benefits to everybody.
Okay, good. Alice and Joe, a different kind of data challenge for both of you in terms of real-time data. So I'll start with you, Alice, first then. So the product you have is allowing, you've said is allowing people to cost their projects. With the current inflation, material prices, subcontract prices, how do you use data and how do you ensure that your customers are having that real-time accessibility to data?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with our customers, when they sign up to the platform, they'll have an indicative rate library whereby they can have general rates, but we allow our platform to be fully customizable. So for any rates that our customers want to put in and update, they can do that at the time. Our software also allows our customers to compare rates across different lots and different rate libraries, so everything's fully customizable, up to date with the client for whatever they need.
Okay, thanks. And then Joe, with your product, about say, you're perhaps more beneficial in the retrofit, the refurbishment, and understanding clients and big clients around how can they reduce their carbon footprint, how do they use the energy better. So then again, you're using data from other sources and data usages, and perhaps using data to educate clients on how to create efficiencies and improvements. How does that form part of you?
Yeah, I mean, the data is absolutely clearly critical to what we do. One of the advantages is that we don't really get hit by GDPR because we don't personalize the data. So most of our data is related to the building. It's actually turned out to be a massive differentiator for us, and we didn't really appreciate this, but we work a lot with local authorities and NHS and such like, and a lot of them won't allow their current control systems, BMS systems, to actually take data off site because they're data insecure. Whereas we've got a secure way of taking data out, and that turned out to be a huge differentiator compared to the incumbents. It is. Echoing Tim, I mean, the security is something that keeps me up at night. I never know exactly, how good we are. We've done Cyber Essentials Plus. We're currently doing the ISO 27001, which is a data security qualification, to make sure that, we really sort of strive to be best in class. But, my background is in construction and mechanical electrical engineering, not in, computers and data science. So, you never quite know how good you are, and slightly worried about it the whole time, to be honest.
And like I say, we just talked about data use, technology, innovation, and the rate of innovation change and development in products at the moment is astronomical in speed in a market. How can you give your customers satisfaction that your technology is up to date, is current? How important is it to you as businesses to make sure that the cutting edge technology and transformation is still part of your core offer? Tim, I suppose.
Yeah, it's the same as any business, really. The key to that is still engaging with your customers, engaging with the market, understanding what the pain points are and what the needs are. So we work on a fortnightly release cadence. So effectively, we're developing new stuff all of the time, refining stuff that we've done, and every fortnight we're pushing out new releases to our solution. So it's kind of one of those painting the fourth bridge scenarios where it just never ends. You're just constantly developing, looking, bringing in feedback from the market, from the customers, and consequently using that to improve the service or to add on new functionality. But I tell you who also isn't stopping is criminals and fraudsters, particularly with the advent of AI. All that's done is speeded up the speed that we need to work at to ensure that we can protect our customers from those sort of people. So yeah, it's very, very interesting, but it always goes down to the central point is if you're not engaging with customers in the market, you don't understand what their pain is, and consequently you can't then design beautiful solutions to solve that pain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's great, great. Joe, I'll come to you next on this one then, because you got, looking at the industry you're in and the products, you've got the big boiler manufacturers in the world, the photovoltaic manufacturers in the world, and they're all raced to get the customers developing new technologies and so forth. It's important for you and your staff and your teams to be aware of technology advancements. And so is that a core fundamental for your staff and development?
Yeah, very much. I mean, to be totally honest with you, our problem is probably the industry doesn't move as fast as we'd like it to move. I think that's a bigger problem than us moving fast enough. I mean, generally, things like boilers and air conditioning and heat pumps, they tend to all speak the same protocols, so to speak. So BACnet and Modbus are the two sort of standard protocols that you'll have on those devices. And then all we're doing is writing an interface to join those things together and make them work more efficiently. So that tends not to be the problem. And I think the problem is much more about innovation in the built environment, and particularly in property and construction. And people are very, very conservative, and trying to get change is very difficult. And there's a few big players, and the powers that be, as in quite often they're written into specifications. So when you come as a challenger and you're looking to challenge the industry, then that is quite that's a challenge. It's difficult. It's not easy to break the incumbent's hold.
So would you class yourself as a disruptor?
We are definitely a disruptor. I mean, we cost a fraction of the big boys. I mean, it can be down at 5%, 10%. I mean, not only are we disrupting, but we're also taking controls into buildings that traditionally wouldn't have controls. So, if you look at, for instance, the builders' cabin market, and don't think about one cabin in a kind of back garden, but think about 100 cabins, being built, when they're building a power station or something like that. We're going into those. I mean, typically in those buildings, we're reducing the energy by over 40%. We're reducing the maintenance calls out and all that. There's a lot of benefit that goes. That market has never had controls in it before. So by bringing it down to a price point that enables it to go into new buildings, you actually extend the market. But yeah, in the more established traditional market, there's a lot of head banging with the incumbents and the existing the specifiers.
I'm going to take the conversation, if I can now, in a sort of a little different direction. And for any new businesses coming in, a lot of businesses work on the fundamentals of ABC: awareness, behaviour, culture. So part of any new business starting up in an innovative PropTech world, awareness is a big thing. Because obviously you need access to market, you've got potential customers, clients sitting opposite you now. How did you approach awareness in your early years to try and make visibility, market awareness, strategies? If you can sort of, would you have done it differently if you were going back in time and doing it again? Or were you happy with your approach to awareness and market wisdom, so to speak? Tim has probably, I think, I'll go Kai on this one first, because obviously, awareness in moving house and the traditional removal man phone call outside, you are disrupting that. So how did you approach awareness?
So I think the great thing for us is everyone's had a bad experience of this. And so it's quite an easy sort of conversation starter. Ross, has a really great network from his previous work. So we were quite able, we were able to get out there quite quickly in front of the estate agents and conveyancers that we wanted to. And that's kind of an unfair advantage, I guess, in those early days in terms of getting in front of clients, starting to have those conversations. It's also worth mentioning, one of the great things about Wales, so we started talking about ID really early on, and Credas are just down the road. We dropped Tim a message and he came back and was like, yeah, let's meet for lunch. I think we were one of the first people we met. And that's a massive advantage for us here in Wales. It's a very small community of businesses and business owners, and most people will take a call and we'll have coffee and have lunch. So use that network in order to get initial feedback and traction would be my advice.
Okay. Alice, as the newest venture on the panel, how is awareness going? How did you, sort of 12 months ago, when awareness needed to be talked about, where were you then? Where are you now compared to the plan you had? Is everything going okay?
Yeah, I guess we were really lucky because we own a consultancy on the side that offer the services that we are sort of providing with eeziQS. So we had our client base ready. A lot of our customers are public sector, so councils. So anything they can do to save money and time, you know, they're pretty on board. So we were fortunate enough to be able to approach our clients from our other business and go down that route. But had we hadn't had that other business, it would have been quite challenging to try and get out there and...
There we are, good. No, that's fine. I think Tim, as the most established then, probably, I'd look on a reflective way. If you were doing it starting today,
Yeah.
or possibly starting next year, and thinking of other things, and how would you have done anything differently, or what have you learned that you can pass on to other businesses starting off?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd do it differently because we just sold the business for 80 million quid, so I'm quite happy with that. So it's interesting. It's only 5 years ago we were the disruptor, right? We were skint, no money, we were all scrappy, and we'd drive to Leeds just to do a deal for 300 quid, sort of thing, like you do when you're a startup. And yet, weirdly, five years later, we're now seen, because we've got 62% market share, as the kind of crusty old incumbents, right? And the old guard. And I don't remember, like, at what point we passed over that Rubicon to go from disruptor to the incumbent. But in terms of, there was a really big event, actually, that changed our business. And I'm always reticent to speak about it, because like most families, we lost people through COVID in my family. But it was COVID that made our business. Because what happened is the one industry that the government kept going was the housing industry by cutting stamp duty, etc., because they understood how important that was to the economy. So people still needed to buy and sell houses, but weren't able to go into a branch and take in and complete their AML checks, compliance checks, and bank statements and passports, etc. So overnight, suddenly, the world needed our solution, and we landed.
Pinching the lotus, somebody.
Yeah. We landed Connells pretty early in our business, and they're by far obviously the biggest estate agency in the UK. So that gave us a fair bit of credibility. And then when COVID came along, when I look back at the graphs now, I mean, we were growing, like sort of 7-8%, which is fine. And then suddenly we jumped by about 70% within about 4 months, which is incredibly, painful. Better than not growing enough, and then it carried on going and powering on from that point onwards. So it was a little bit of luck, if I'm honest, but I always go back to this central point, is the role of PropTech providers like myself and Kai. Our job is to understand what the pain is in the market and then design elegant solutions that solve that pain. And if you can do that, then all the money and revenue and EBITDA, all that sort of stuff just kind of takes care of itself. And so our biggest awareness has frankly come through COVID and landing a really big customer really early, and that gave us the credibility to power on.
No, that's great. That's great experience for others. And I think from an awareness, PropTech is such a big, wide topic. And I'm just thinking of it from a new entrant or a career opportunity for young people or people who are transitioning from one sector to another. Joe, you talked earlier about the 2 back office being Modbus and something else or whatever. If you are offering advice now and you were going into a school, just talk about a career in technology linked to PropTech or anything else, what is the career path? Because a lot of young people today are influenced by teachers, parents or carers. And to them, the word PropTech, they wouldn't, let's be honest, wouldn't really know what that is. Yet they're very influenced on the direction of learners and their career paths. How would you sell technology and PropTech at the moment to a young person to go home and tell their parents or carer or grandparents, I want to go into technology? Alice, I'll come to you first and then Joe, so you've got more time to think about it. So Alice, just think of how could you describe a career and an opportunity and a pathway to a young person coming into this environment?
That's a really difficult question. I guess, primary age children, they know the typical roles, then they have a teacher, a doctor, a vet, and things like that. I think when they go into comp, it could be educating teachers that are with them every day, to pass on the message of PropTech and
Educate the educator.
yeah, absolutely. Because as a past teacher myself, a qualified teacher, it's not something that we know. It's not a world that I entered until a couple of years ago. So, yeah, definitely educate the educators.
Yeah. Joe, I'll come to you, and then Kai, and then Tim to finish on this one.
I actually don't think, I don't think the entrepreneurs, the leaders, are going to be coming from school, because, I very strongly agree with what Tim said, in that what you're looking for is pain points in the market. And as entrepreneurs, what we're trying to do is address people's pain. And, so I think that school kids are unlikely to have seen pain in PropTech because they're just not exposed to it. And if you look at who does create, what's the nearest you see sort of school kids creating? And it's things like Mark Zuckerberg creating Facebook, because he saw an opportunity. He had a pain that he wanted to meet more girls, couldn't meet any girls, so he developed an app that did that. And that was his problem at that time. I don't think that, people at school level are likely to identify the challenges until you get in the marketplace. And all of us sitting here have all developed a product because we saw a problem. I think what I would encourage people, children to do at school, or school, I would open their eyes to entrepreneurism. I think that you can take a risk, you can develop things. I think also technology is underpinning all of our businesses to a large degree. So, getting good skills in that and understanding that is those are the critical ingredients. And actually it's about taking risk. And I think there's a real problem that, society is quite risk adverse, and certainly different parts of the country, vary a lot in people's appetite to risk. And actually what you want to do is encourage people, and the risks are often not as bad as people think. And the perception of employees as being self-employed, being an entrepreneur is very risky. I don't accept that. I think that, this is my 10th business. I've only gone bust once. You learn as you go along.
Thanks, Kai.
Yeah, we should come to QS, the M&E, and their Wendy houses. I'd back that completely. I think what we need to do with young people is talk more about irregular sort of career paths today. It's easier and it's more open than ever. And certainly, in my previous role when we were running incubators, what we were trying to do is just get people at that university stage through their first failure really quickly, so that you're in a very safe space when you're sort of 20, 21 years old, where you can fail and it doesn't really hurt too much, and get them into it. In terms then of PropTech, yeah, everyone lives around it. We probably don't think enough about it, but well, certainly when I was in school, there wasn't an awful lot of M&E in that building at all. Just wet and cold.
Tim.
Yeah, I widen it to technology, actually. It's a bit of a bugbear. Whenever people talk about jobs in technology to kids, everyone assumes there's people sitting there writing code. Only 10-15% of my business is developers. You need salespeople, you need marketing people, you need customer service people. Quite a lot of the skills jobs in technology companies are can be unskilled jobs as well. So I think if people are trying to encourage people to work in technology, then they need to stop just talking about developers and coders and maybe talk a bit of a wider thing. There's a much bigger problem though, and that's the number of girls who go and work in technology businesses. We've all been talking about this for about 30, 40 years, right? Which is, it's tiny. My son graduated 5 years ago, and there was 1 out of 98 in a computer science degree that was a female. So I think the conversation to attract kids into technology needs to be wider than just coding. And number 2 is probably a much bigger thing, that why 30, 40 years are we still talking about the lack of girls who feel comfortable about coming into that sector, which is probably a bigger thing we should address.
Yeah, good. I'm just going to give everyone a heads up. In about 5 minutes' time, no more than 5 minutes, Paul is our glamorous roving mic person. So in about 2 or 3 minutes' time, Paul's going to come around. What I want you to think about, if you is some keywords that just come up from business. Understand what pain looks like, and how can because I think that's a key takeaway from today is pain. Well, that kind of understand what pain is and design the elegance to solve it. That was a lovely little phrase. I love that. But beforehand, let me just finish off in the senses of where do you see PropTech, because it's constantly moving in the space. Where do you see it in the next 2 to 3 years evolving to in terms of driving efficiency, reduce cost in the transactional world that lawyers and all disciplines work with, conveyancing, estate movement, etc., etc. Where do you see it in terms of awareness of it in the next 3 to 5 years? Kai, we'll start with you first now.
I'd hope collaboration needs to be the big driver. I don't think we're so sensitive to cost. Like, everyone's doing good, everyone's doing a good job. What we're not getting is great quality service at the moment. And our feeling is that's around collaboration and communication. And so long as that's driven and that increases, then everything else will follow. And we'll be happy with the experience we then start to get.
Alice, you first, and then Joe, and then Tim. Where do you see your aspect? And I'm assuming if you were a pioneer in what it is, you're going to be faced with some competition before long because they won't let you have the market share. So how do you see growth in the next 3 years?
I think we're just going to be seeing more and more. It's going to be, it's not going to be, it's not a case of if it comes, it's a case of when it's coming and how much it grows in that time. But we're going to have to shift with the times. We're going to have to move with AI. It is taking over as much as we don't want it to. When things work more efficient with AI and quicker and cut cost, it is the way forward.
Yeah. Joe, last one before we open it to the floor, because Paul's getting impatient. He's giving me the nod.
Okay, I think there's, first of all, it's quite unusual for me to be classified as PropTech. We're nearly always classified as IoT or environmental tech type thing. That's where we sit. But I think one of the major challenge, or one way to open it up is regulation. I think that the government's got a role in sort of deregulating and making an environment where technology can flourish. And I mean, just give you an example in our space, we're typically reducing energy consumption in commercial buildings by 30 or 40%. Unfortunately, we can't work in domestic buildings because the way the regulations are structured, it doesn't allow, if we went and put it in your own home, we wouldn't give you a benefit on the EPC. And consequently, because even though we'd reduce your energy consumption by 30 or 40%, because there's no benefit in EPC, the house builders won't put it in, the big landlords, i.e. social housing, won't put it in. So the government, and we're actually getting, ridiculously, we're getting funding from Innovate UK to spend on another government quango to try and change the government's regulations, which is just beyond mad, but that's how the government works. So, and I think that a lot of the PropTech, it needs the regulatory environment to be, every time the government deregulates or opens databases which are available, then I think you get another wave of technology, so, that reduces it gives people opportunity to change how the current incumbent systems work.
Yeah, thank you very much. Then we're going to open it though. So if anybody has got any questions, I got other ones in backup, so don't worry, you don't feel as if you have to if you don't want to. But obviously it'd be great to get some interaction with those sitting in the chair. Remember now, no question is a silly question. We have a gentleman there. Could you just introduce who you are and who you'd like to direct the question to, please?
Sure. I'm Joe, and I would like to direct a question to Joe Wills.
Yeah.
So the question is that when you said that people are so risk averse, the biggest question that gets me is, do you need to have sufficient market research in order to get the maximum income and to get the sufficient market share? Like, when people are so risk averse, they don't want to spend money on something which they don't think is viable. How do you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, that is a great question, because I think that there's evolutionary products and there's revolutionary products. And if you're going to make an evolutionary product, you can probably go out and talk to the market and understand people's pain points and change. And then I'd argue there's revolutionary products. And and I'd suggest that what we're doing sits in that category. And every time I talk to my customers, I mean, the best quote on this is Henry Ford. So basically, Henry Ford said when he went out and talked to people and said, "What do you want?" They all said they wanted a faster horse, and that's what you get, basically. So I think that if you really want to change incumbents, you've got to take a risk, and so you've got to find that backing, and either you've got to back yourself, or you've got to find investors who are prepared to believe your vision and understand that there's a value proposition, and that's where we come back to risk. And and again, I think that there's much more risk appetite outside the UK. I mean, particularly American venture capital firms and such like are much more open to taking a risk on businesses as opposed to British ones. So, yeah, that would be my answer. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Joe. Any others? No? Not to worry? Yeah, Joe?
I want to ask a question of Alice because me and Alice had only just met. So, but I'm very interested because Alice has basically set up a business which is actually competing with her existing business. And so you've kind of already got a QS consultancy, which I assume is successful. And now you set up a QS technology company, which is way cheaper than your current business. So you're killing your own business. That's pretty brave.
Yeah, that's a great question. And when we went out with this, we thought, well, we do so much work for the councils, the public sector. And, you know, as we know, QSs get paid a nice wage. And, you know, that would then be going then for this one license a year, which they can use time and time again. However, we see the bigger picture where AI is going to take over. Technology will take over in time. So we want to be ahead of the game, whether that means that we are the only consultancy using it internally at the moment and we're selling licenses on the side. So we're ahead of the game by being able to take more work on, turn it around quicker for our clients, and hopefully in time when the councils are using it and embedded it in their day-to-day work, they will be writing it then into their tenders for everyone to use, sort of eeziQS, use it in this name and laying convention, you know, and hopefully it'll pay off in the long run. You know, we've still got enough engineering work and other work to keep us going, so we 100% back that decision.
That's what I mean by being brave. So, yeah.
Has anyone else a chance to think of anything else we'll come back to? If not, we'll just we'll keep going. You've talked about AI, Alice, quite a few points now, and I understand from, obviously coming from construction myself, understand that Tim, talking about AI, and I know in the audience I can see some fintech people, I can see some legal people, and AI is really hitting their industry already. In the products and services, is AI something that's on your radar? Do you get concerned about it? Do you worry about it? Is that why you sold it?
No, I get quite a few of these panels, and AI always comes up. It's, you know, if you go back 3 years ago, by the way, it was like blockchain, stick out on the side of the box, bang 20% on the price sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right? And AI, in many cases, that is the case now. The reality is it's just another tool, right? And there's loads of hype about it at the minute, right? That'll all dissipate in time, and it'll just become yet another useful tool. So in our industry, what AI is doing is allowing fraudsters to produce much higher quality fraudulent documents in order for them to perpetrate fraud. So it means companies like ours and partners like Kai and others now need to basically be combating that with more and more effective tools. And obviously AI plays a part in that as well. But generally speaking, look, if you reduce the chatter about AI by about 60%, it's probably closer to where the actual utility and agency that it has on a day-to-day basis today is where that sits. So yeah, it's part of the mix going forward, but it's just another tool in the box that's madly overhyped at the moment.
Good. Right. Interesting. So the other, I'm going to bring the last questions to you all, bring it back on time to a year. We're in Wales Tech Week in this fabulous venue, promoting Wales and technology. How has Wales, not how, has Wales, being the ecosystem that it is, the size that it is, has it helped you and your businesses to get to where you are now? Has it helped you promote? Has it the connections, access to government and other things? Has being a Welsh-based business in Wales in technology helped your businesses or hindered? I think everybody would like to know. You know, we talk about Wales being a nation of tech entrepreneurs, perhaps don't get all the way through, but has being in Wales helped you? Joe, we'll come to you first.
To be honest with you, no. I mean, you know, I think that our experience, we do a lot of sort of public sector work, and actually we find that it's much more conservative in Wales than it is in England. And actually, funny enough, Scotland, I mean, bizarrely, we get loads of work in Scotland and England. So actually, it works against us. I mean, I find, personally, I think, you know, Wales could be so much more. And Kai touched upon it about being a community. And I think that, you know, people do know each other and they can recommend things. And I think that, you know, Wales could really be an innovation sort of hothouse and allowing people to trial technologies and do things. But in my view, you know, it's quite conservative, and or certainly the markets we're in. And, you know, yeah, it hasn't worked for us.
That's a nice segue to you then, Kai. And obviously, an event like this, then, Joe, is helping building that community, I would gather.
Yeah, Joe wasn't very on message there.
No.
I'll try and bring
You won't
it.
be getting an invite back.
So, yeah, like I've been involved in the startup community, you know, in South Wales since 2006 when I left uni. And back then, we didn't call that company a startup, and we certainly didn't use the word fintech, even though it was a startup in insurtech. If I think to today, and you know, having been through these various iterations, the system today is so much better than it's ever been. Is it perfect? No. Is there an awful lot to do? Yes. But every year it feels like things are getting better. If you stand back and you look at that long-term trend, I'm sure, you know, if we come down like the line, we would all make recommendations. We've all got people we'll gripe about, or institutions we'll gripe about. But things are getting better, and things are more positive. And you know, at the end of the day, we all live in Wales. I love living here. It's a beautiful country to live in. Cardiff's a great city. The connectivity is there. So, yeah, I'm a little bit sort of rosy-eyed about it, maybe. Quietly on the side, definitely we push and we lobby, and you know, we make sort of complaints about things, and things do change.
Yeah. Alice, coming from West Wales then, which is a bit more rural and less populous than the area. How was your views?
Yeah, listen, I love where I live. You know, we're lucky because we're an infrastructure company with our other company, and in Wales we always need roads fixed and they always need new routes and everything, so our work just keeps on coming. So Wales provides about 80% of our work, and we work really closely with Business Wales, who have really helped us with sort of startup policies, contracts. You know, we've gone for Cardiff growth funds, which we've been successful with. So yeah, we're really, really happy. Our company, over 50% of our company are Welsh speakers as well. Dyn ni siarad Cymraeg yn regal, so we've had a lot of backing from councils and things that encourage that, and like to do work through the medium of Welsh as well. So it's a definite yes from me.
As Tim, as a company that's gone UK-wide and everywhere else, number 5 in the charts, as you mentioned.
Yeah, look, Wales has been fantastic for us as a business, right? And it's a great place to grow a technology business. So, I mean, Credas was founded 7 years ago by 2 guys in a pub in Cardiff. We've managed to find the business, go through startup, scale up, and then through 2 exits, release over 100 million in exit value, right? And we've done that here in Cardiff with a relatively small team. And there's real advantages to being here, right? Number one, in terms of attracting staff, about a quarter of our staff have actually come from other bits of the UK and moved to South Wales, because the ratio of house prices and salaries makes it a very affordable place to live. You've got a Jurassic coast over there, the Brecon Beacons over here, miles of sandy beaches down in the Gower. So it's a really, really good quality of life to live here as well. With devolved government and the small community that you have in and around FinTech Wales and things like this, you only have one person removed. So if I want to speak to a government minister, if I want to speak to CEO of Admiral, I can pick up a phone and I can speak to somebody who can then get me around the desk with those people. And you don't really have that in other bits of the country. Look, Cardiff is the second biggest hub outside of London for insurtech, right, and for insurance businesses. So it's a real thriving hub here that we have in South Wales. We have problems. It costs me far too much to get on a train to go to London. It costs 400 quid a time, and about 1 in 8 of those journeys is an absolute nightmare. Bryn glass tunnels, which, you know, everyone would have experienced coming here today. So we've got those things, but by and large, we've got a lot of big businesses in where go compare the market. Admiral, for example. Really, really good technology businesses, a thriving startup community, a lot of support in and around that, access to government. It's as good a place in the UK as anywhere else to find and grow a technology business.
And on that note of positivity, I don't think I should progress with another question, do you? I think that's a great way to end the session. Thank you, Tim. And please put your hands together for Tim, Alice, Joe and Kai. And thank you for joining and listening. It would be remiss of me, because Avril will cut my legs off, if I don't say please promote Wales Tech Wales on all the social media platforms, #Wales Tech Week, and hopefully you want to interact with the panelists and look to discuss things further, please do so.
He's good at this, Leigh, isn't he? You don't need me here, and it's really nice to end on a positive note. A great discussion there. I think really nice to get all the different perspectives from all of you. So thank you all very much, and thank you for you guys for attending. Just to quickly let you know that our next session here on the Pulse stage is called Lights, Camera, Action: Supercharging Sustainable Media Production in Wales. That begins at 3:15. Hope to see some of you then. And in the meantime, please take a look around the exhibitions and promote online, as Leigh said. Thank you very much. But finally, hands together again for our panel.